Today, Locked On Red Wings. Is that what a captain says, or is it just soft? Scotty and I address Larkin's comments as well as what other players said at exit interviews for the season.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. Scotty's host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a sports writer for C&G newspapers. Caught myself at the last second. And I am a color commentator for Oakland University, ACHA D1 men's hockey. Scotty has figured out his car troubles. I'm still coughing a lot, but Scotty's here to at least intervene if I'm coughing a ton. So we are back to finally cover these exit interviews that have been looming over us for what is now, this will be the Wednesday episode for 5 days, because the Grand Rapids Griffins played in there, and we wanted to talk about Axel Sandin-Pellikka and Michael Brandsegg-Nygard, and then, of course, the events that I just explained transpired. So it's been a long time coming, and we'll lead off with the most interesting one. But before we can get to that, I got to let you guys know today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Also want to thank you guys for making Locked On Red Wings your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Fully expect, by the way, at some point during this episode for me to stop talking mid-sentence, and you'll hopefully hear nothing, but just know that I am coughing. So at that point, Scotty, you'll have to say something funny. You're a funny guy. So just heads up, you may have to.
Really not. I will strictly just use that time to make fun of you without having a rebuttal be possible.
Just say your catchphrase in there.
You're bold?
Yes, that is your catchphrase.
Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah.
There you go. All right. So, Scotty, obviously the player media availabilities, the end of season availabilities were this past weekend. And some players had nothing to say, essentially, which is why we're going to cover all of them in one episode and probably not even touch on some of the players. And other players had interesting things to say, Dlyan Larkin being the one that is going most viral for what he said, essentially saying that the team didn't do enough to go in March, but they also did not get a boost at the trade deadline, and it would have been nice to see them add to get that morale boost, and when they didn't, he felt the team kind of sag. That's me paraphrasing, but I would say that's a fairly accurate summation of what he had said. Scotty, the question that everybody's asking in Metro Detroit is this a good captain moment where he is, putting the pressure on his general manager to bring in more talent this offseason and be the voice for the guys in his room? Or is this somebody who is brooding and mopey and just kind of crying about how it didn't go his way? Because that seems to be the two drastic polarizing opinions and takeaway from those comments. Where do you, on that spectrum, let's say that way, on that spectrum, where do you lie?
Well, it's hard to pick an exact spot on that spectrum, which I'm trying not to cop out of an answer here. I think the context of where the root of his comments come from is important, right? For instance, if he is saying that the team didn't make the playoffs because they did not bring in players at the deadline, and it is an excuse for the team to have had as poor of a second half as they did, that is lame. And that is ridiculous. And I don't think that's what he's doing. Also, I want to make that clear. If that is the context, and if that's where you think the root of those comments stems from, then yeah, I think that's a really just lame excuse. You're the a player, period. I don't really care what your role is. And they were doing really, really well before then. So I think that is an excuse, and not a very good one at that. On the flip side, because again, I don't think my opinion is that is not him using it as like an excuse for how poor they played. But on the flip side of that, you can say, okay, well, is it more of a moment for a leader and a pillar of this organization to apply pressure on a front office after, like, the fan base agrees with him? That's why, like, it's so weird to me that people are like really upset at him for saying it. Like, the fans almost unanimously, you can't get everybody to agree what color the sky is, so like not unanimously, but like almost, like unanimously are of the opinion that they did not do anything at the deadline, and that was a disappointment. And they did not do enough last offseason either, if you want to go over even a further amount of time. And then you can even go back to the previous trade deadline. Like they have about over a year, a calendar year of the fan base being disappointed on them not bringing in enough NHL, like quality NHL talent. So like, I have no issue with what he said. I do think ultimately that it depends on, again, the context in which he is saying it. If it's an excuse for why they lost games, then that's lame and he shouldn't do it. And I agree that that's a really, I don't know, like kind of just like weird thing to say. And he shouldn't use it as an excuse. I don't think he is, though. I think this is more of looking ahead and saying, hey, like this team is right on the cusp and we are not getting any help. And it'd be really nice to have some help brought in at the NHL level. So I don't know where that puts me on the spectrum. I guess that puts me on the side of things that it's a good captain moment, because I don't think he's using it as an excuse. But I do also understand the people that think it might be.
Right. And I think for me, the biggest thing that I keep thinking about is that, have you ever listened to Dlyan Larkin speak before? Like, ever in your life, in a media availability, heard him speak? He talks like this. He's very monotone, and he learned that from his predecessors for sure, right? Zetterberg, Lidstrom, Yzerman, media availabilities, just monotone, not bringing a lot of energy. So if he sounds mopey, if he sounds wah, that's because that's how he sounds in any media availability he's ever done. So I can see where people can read into that he's moping about it, and I do think that he was probably bummed out at the time that it happened and is a little bummed out, but at the same time, I do think he is also right in that, and we've discussed it, right? It's one of those things, right? It's multiple things can be true. We always say that on this show. Steve Yzerman not making a more impactful buy at the deadline, I can understand, because prices were crazy. Anthony Beauvillier got a second-round pick. Like, that is crazy. That's the type of assets you were giving up. And where this team was at, I understood. I didn't agree with it because I wanted this team to make the playoffs, just like Dlyan Larkin did, which is why I agree with him. But I could understand it. But on the flip side, this team may have made the playoffs had they added one more impactful player, right? That might have been the difference in a couple of games to put them over the edge. So I understand the frustration. But at the same time, he's also just kind of giving you the answer to your question. And so he explains. He just goes through the timeline. He goes, in March, we didn't win enough going into it. And at the trade deadline, we didn't get anything, and so the locker room sagged because we were hoping to bring in a spark to boost morale. Where in there is he wrong, right? Like, all of that he said is accurate. In fact, he said we didn't do enough. He preceded this by saying we did not do enough, because that's the big counter argument, is that people are saying, well, you want Yzerman to buy. You didn't put him in a very good position to do so. Yes, which is why he said we didn't win games prior to that. Like, it's he does address it, but that's not the part that people are focusing on. They're focusing on just the trade deadline part. So that's why I just think the whole thing is so blown out of proportion. But I also think Dlyan Larkin is right to say that thing, especially if that's what the locker room does feel. But also, I can see why it comes off as a little bit of mopey, even if that's how he just in general always talks. and like oh, woe is me type mentality. And the only problem I have with Dlyan Larkin in this instance is that he may have done it. He might not have just said that he did it. But if that's the mentality of the locker room post-trade deadline, that's where you as captain, and you brought this up, that's where you as captain, Scotty, have to rally the team. And if you're not capable of rallying the team, and if you're just going to wallow in the self-pity of not getting a guy at the trade deadline, well, then you're part of the problem, not the solution, in terms of rallying, getting the team back into its winning ways. You know what I mean? Like, you got to be able to say, all right, he didn't give us help. Screw him. We're going to win in spite of him. We're going to prove to him that adding at the deadline would have benefited this team even further. And we're going to make the playoffs anyways. They tried to do that last year. It didn't work out. And it really didn't work out this year. So, I don't know. I think the whole thing's a little bit overblown. But it was a very interesting quote, which is why we're talking about it. I think, honestly, at the end of the day, Scotty, it holds weight.
Which is really all we can ask for with these things, man. Like, how many times do we have an episode like this every year? Every single year when the season ends, you and I get on here and talk about end of season media availability, and 99% of it is just fluff that is like, oh yeah, like this is nice to hear, I guess, but it doesn't really matter. It's at least nice to have somebody say something, which is kind of why I don't really mind it. Like it's at least nice to have somebody, and that somebody being your captain, going out there and saying something that's actually going to hold some weight and resonate with people in the fan base. That's more than again, 99% of these quotes usually.
Well, you know what's funny in like true Brian fashion here? Like I start the segment off, be like, okay, it's a spectrum, right? Where do you lie in these opinions? I'm like, well, it's both. It's column A and column B. Like, let's be honest. Like, it's both those things. I have a setup, and then I don't knock it down. I swing for a ball on a different tee. Like, that's so funny. Scotty, we're going to head to a quick break when we return. Well, he had a couple other comments that were interesting. Patrick Kane made an interesting comment. I liked Copp's comments. One thing from Marco Casper, and then if there's anything else, Scotty, that you heard, we can cover as well, because you listened to a few more than I did going into this too. So we'll cover that and more in the rest of this episode. Stay tuned to segment 2 of Lockdown Red Wings. The NBA playoffs are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. You'll love using FanDuel because it makes it so easy, makes betting so easy, whether it's picking your favorite team like the Detroit Pistons or diving into player props on guys like Cade Cunningham. From three-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. All right, Scotty. By the way, go Pistons. Since it was a FanDuel read about basketball, go Pistons.
Go Stones, baby.
That's sick.
I'm going.
You're going on Thursday?
I don't think I'm going Thursday, but I'm going to. Well, I don't know. We're going to at least one of them. Let me tell you.
This is my most recent Detroit Pistons hat, and I was like, I got to wear it on the show today. And one.
Dang right, baby.
Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. I've watched all of 2 basketball games, 2 Pistons games all year long, and I have a burning hatred for what's his name, Jalen Brunson already. So
you didn't even know if you got his name right.
I watched 2 games all year, so I just know that if someone breathes on him, he falls down. I watched 2 games. I'm like, I hate that guy.
Yeah, I've been doing it since Villanova. He's pretty darn good at it.
Anyways, other 2 comments that Larkin made. One they both kind of play into those comments he just made, right? One was talking at some point about how there are fourth rounders the Red Wings are going to draft this season that he may never get to play with because that's where he's at in his career. And that kind of ties into, he said that earlier in response to a different question, but it kind of ties into what he was talking about, where like the disappointment at not buying at the deadline. And also he did mention that he was banged up after Four Nations, like many players were. And it kind of explains why he slumped the second half of the year. And honestly, I kind of had a hunch he was banged up at least right after Four Nations because he wasn't playing his usual way. I didn't know he was nagging him throughout the rest of the season, but I'm not surprised it was.
Yeah, I mean that's giveth and taketh thing with the Four Nations and how much of a success it was and how high intensity it was. It also comes with that. I think I mean that's something every team has to deal with injuries throughout the entire season, and it's not really an excuse for Wings production at this point either. It's just something that you got to work through like every other team in the league.
You're right, but at the same time, maybe the league could put a high intensity international tournament before the season or after the season rather than in the middle of the season.
I agree with that. I think it was clearly a huge success.
And it was fun. I liked it.
Yeah, it was clearly a massive, massive win for the NHL, but they are going to have to find a way to. Well, when is Olympics next year? Like, I mean, that's going to be its own thing. So,
right,
they got a couple of years to figure out when they want to when they want to utilize the Four Nations again for sure.
100%. All right, moving on from there, Patrick Kane also in his media availability, there was one quote he specifically said. There were two quotes he specifically said that I thought were interesting. He basically contradicted Larkin. He said that he doesn't think the trade deadline impacted like the room's mental state at all, and it didn't impact their game. I don't necessarily think I believe him. I'm gonna be honest. I think that sounded like a media answer to me. I mean, the team went 4-10 in March, so granted, a lot of those losses were before the trade deadline. But if one guy's going out there and saying very specifically, like the locker room sagged after the trade deadline and didn't get anything, and we were hoping for a spark and get a morale boost, that's very specific. Versus the other guy saying, no, that had no effect. I'm not disrespecting Patrick Kane. I think he's that's very good media training on his part. The other thing, go ahead.
No, I agree. I take Larkin's word on that one. Yeah.
That's why I was going to fly right past it. I was like, there's not really conversation to be had there.
Yeah.
The other one was that he likes the team. He liked the contract he was on, the 1 year with the performance bonuses tied in. Obviously, he has the great relationship with Cat. They asked Cat if he was going to try his best to keep Kane here. Cat, of course, said yes. Kane said, would he be open to that contract again? And then he's like, well, that's a discussion for me, my family, and the organization. But after all the praise he just sang, it feels like the door is very wide open to Patrick Kane returning to into a Detroit Red Wings uniform.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think I liked a lot of what he said, really. Had a couple of quotes about, I think the one that really stuck out was something about like everybody could have done more, everybody could have gave more this season, and I said, myself included, even though he had a great year. So yeah, I think you're right. I think that's they're gonna want to lean on him going forward. That is for sure.
Yeah, and one thing that every single player was asked about, including Kane, was like what in the second half of the season, because Kane obviously blew up in the second half of the year, struggled in the first half. Everyone said basically it was the way that McClellan drove them to play with their brains, like play creative hockey, that allowed them to kind of unlock that next gear. Of course, you saw them kind of fall back into those habits they were trained in March and part of April too. So they got to train that out, and that's why they kept saying like have a full training camp with Tom McClellan is going to really help to embed new habits. But they all praised McClellan for giving them an avenue to play like themselves as to why they were so successful.
I think he used the word instinctive.
Instinctive, yes, that was it. Scotty, let's head to another quick break. When we return, we'll wrap up with Copp. I have a comment from Casper. and just some stuff about Soderblom and Seider and anything else you got to bring to the plate. So stay tuned to segment 3 of Locked On Red Wings.
All right, get Brian out of here. Let's talk pistachios, okay? Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious will crack into a good source of protein with wonderful pistachios. Wonderful pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats. They'll keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, as you all know by now, I love the no shells variety. It's the perfect grab and go snack for busy days. Whether I'm snacking at my desk, on a road trip, or just need a quick protein boost, they're always my go-to. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, well, the in-shell options are a classic favorite as well. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more.
Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast.
You just changed during the break?
I took my hoodie off. I was sweating so bad. It was crazy.
Gosh, you're so weird.
What's weird? I had a minute while you were reading. I took my hoodie off.
Dude, you're changing mid-episode. That's why.
I had the shirt on underneath.
It's one more segment.
Yeah, and I was sweating, so I wanted to cool off.
Impressive.
Thank you. Andrew Copp, my favorite guy to hear, listen to, speak with the media because he is a straight shooter.
For real, man.
Says exactly what he's thinking, and I really appreciate him for that. Baller. He basically said, I aggressively rehabbed against my family's wishes because I wanted to come back for the playoffs if the Red Wings made it. Obviously, they didn't, but he was shooting to do that, which I thought was crazy stuff from Andrew Copp, but I love that from him. Like, you know what's crazy, too? Because on the ice, he shows zero emotion. He scores, and it's just, like, evil eyes, dead, like, no smile.
Remember when he got his 200th career goal?
Yeah, and he should have come sooner.
Yeah, he swore on air and said it doesn't mean anything, and then said, hopefully the next 200 come quicker. Like, he just doesn't care, dude. I love listening to him talk.
No, and then, like, as soon as he steps behind a camera for an interview, it's just like, yeah, here's a guy who just is going to tell you what he thinks. Great stuff from Andrew Copp. What did you like from him?
Yeah, no, I mean, same. I think really the thing that I can appreciate the most is the, what's the phrase I'm looking for? The accountability, I guess, that the entire locker room seems to be taking. We talked about, Cat is take that same approach where he was like, everybody could have done more. Copp was certainly kind of echoing that sentiment. And Kane talked about it a little bit. Like, that just seemed to be the overarching theme was, for as much as everybody's focusing on, like Larkin said that he wanted more help at the deadline. Well, like, literally every single person on the team in their media availability, nearly everybody was like, yeah, the players, we should have done a lot more.
Yeah. And I thought that was really impressive from every single player. Alex DeBrincat, who scored 39 goals, he was even myself, I could have provided more. I'm like, brother, you scored 39 goals. Like, I mean, I guess you didn't tie your career high in assists you set last year, but yeah, it's one of those things where, like, every single player is like, we all could have provided more and done more and gotten the team to the playoffs if we had provided more offense or better defense in particular throughout the season. I really liked the comment he made, too, about how players down the lineup didn't do enough to take pressure off Raymond and Larkin on the score sheet, especially after Four Nations, right, where they started to cool off and they were going through slumps and struggles, but nobody else besides DeBrincat and Kane were reliably scoring on this roster. There was nobody there to help them out. And so you can understand, and I really respect the fact that Copp is willing to say that. I don't think there's a lot of guys on this team that are willing to be like, yeah, they played great all season long. They're the reason we were winning games, but it was the rest of us that weren't stepping up to support them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the accountability was big. And I think it goes both ways. You know what I mean? Like it's something that you need a better supporting cast. You need more production down the lineup. Obviously, that's kind of like excluding, like Kane and Cat. Like it's not like literally everybody that's not Larkin and Raymond, but I think when you saw them slow up there in the second half, production wise, that is when that comment really kind of resonates with people. And I think that it, like I said, kind of goes both ways in the sense that Larkin and Raymond also have to find other ways to still produce when those moments happen. And so I think that's part of development for Raymond. He's still young. I mean, heck, Larkin's not that old. I'm not sure he's like a developing player anymore, but like, you know what I mean? Like that's just something that they're going to have to figure out as well. Because for as much as we can talk about getting more production down the lineup card, at the end of the day, if you're not getting that top end production from two of your best players, if not your two best players, then you're not going to win as many games as you want to, I'd say.
Agreed. I don't have much else of note. I have a couple like stuff category things, like Casper saying that in the offseason he's going to work on everything, but specifically he's going to work on his face-offs, which I am like 100% supporter of. Obviously, we knew it, but I'm sure even more so than us, he knew his face-off percentage this year was pretty rough. So I'm looking forward to seeing how big of a leap he can make in the offseason. Outside that, Soderblom reassigned to the AHL. He'll play once his injury's healed, so big gain for the Griffins as they start their playoff run next Tuesday. And then Seider committed at the time of the interview, he didn't commit to Worlds, but then a couple days later he committed to Worlds. So he'll be representing Germany at World Championships. Anything else, buddy?
I don't think so, man. Goalies were, pretty straightforward. Some cool stuff about families and whatnot, and the season, but nothing really Red Wing related. Alex Lyon, talking a little bit about being open to coming back. I'm not sure that's an avenue that the Red Wings are going to go down, though. Aljo, exciting to be a rookie and whatnot. But yeah, no, not anything I don't think too pressing.
Okay, I think that about does it. Helps that they shotgunned all the interviews in one day rather than stretching them out over a couple like they usually do. Most notably, we know that Yzerman is supposed to speak at some point, but I don't think it's been formally announced yet what day that's going to be. It's got to be Wednesday, right? Because Thursday the Pistons play, so that's going to be all dedicated to the Pistons, the playoffs. Hold on. I think I remember maybe saying something.
Who?
Yzerman speaking. That's got to happen tomorrow or today, right?
I would imagine.
I don't think we ever got official confirmation about that or I missed it, which is also very possible. Which is crazy for us. As chronically online as I am, the amount of stuff that I miss is insane.
I'm pretty sure that he has not spoken yet.
No, he has not spoken. I'm more worried about looking for I'm talking about missing the announcement of when he will speak.
Oh. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Whenever.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
All right. When that happens, we'll cover it. Otherwise, tomorrow we'll take a look back at the season, what went wrong, what went right, and what they need to do in the future. Stay tuned.
Word.
Any final thoughts? We ball. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.